fellas. It's currently 8 p.m. in Nairobi, Kenya. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, guys. I hope you had a fun transition into the new year. I know I did. Um, and yeah, I just wanted to do a quick live stream on what I was up to last night during my New Year's Eve celebrations. And then I want to talk about another topic specifically on why I think dating experience is important. So yeah, just a few things to talk about. Now I am a little bit hungover. Obviously, I had a fairly heavy night with my friends, going out into the city and having a fun party, going to the club. And even before that, I actually went out to see friends for lunch, or like a late lunch, even before going out in the evening. So yeah, your boy drank a fair amount yesterday, more than usual, but it was fun. I enjoyed myself, but of course, I'm feeling the after effects of that today. So forgive me if I'm not as sharp as usual. It's I can blame it on the alcohol, but to be fair, I feel fine. I got some pizza down me. Shout out to Pizza Inn. I had an absolutely banging chicken tikka, peri peri chicken pizza, which has whew, definitely come in clutch. So I'm glad about that. But yeah, anyway, let me get straight into it. So yeah, so yesterday I had plans to go out to a club in Nairobi, or like a bar rather, just to celebrate the New Year's Eve countdown, and then of course have a clubbing night out with the friends and everything. So yeah, we started the evening around maybe 7 p.m., 8 p.m. So that's when we went to my friend's apartment just to pre-drink and I guess get ourselves a bit sauced up before actually going to the club. And so yeah, obviously it was me, a couple of family friends, other friends, and then they also invited people that they knew. And so yeah, I just basically, I don't want to go on too long about the story, but essentially, somebody, one of the people who was invited through a friend of mine, she turned up and she looked nice, and I thought, okay, it might be fun to try and make a move, shoot my shot, which is something I'm not unfamiliar with. I've certainly done that in the past if I've been to a house party or any sort of, let's say, social gathering with friends. And yeah, I've certainly been able to, yeah, just meet people and try and shoot my shot if I'm interested in the girl. So yeah, as soon as she walked in, I was like, okay, she looks nice. She's got a great dress on. It'll be cool if I could try and take this somewhere. But of course, it wasn't, let's say, front of mind, right? It wasn't like my main priority. Obviously, I was there with friends, so I wanted to make sure I had a good time, that we had a good laugh, and just essentially enjoy the night as a group rather than me just like soloing in or focusing on trying to pull this other girl. But I mean, to be honest, in the back of my mind, I thought, yeah, it'll be cool to hook up with her, just for the night and have this sort of short romance experience. So yeah, she came in. I introduced myself. We talked a little bit, and then as you do, you just go around the room talking to different people, having fun, and then of course we eventually go to the club. And it took a while to get our table because the way that we got the club, it was booked by someone that we know in the UK, and I think there was a bit of a mishap in sorting out the reservation. So we thought we had a table for the whole group, but yeah, it turned out that that table had been cancelled for some reason. But yeah, we managed to convince the I guess the bar staff or the hosts that we had a reservation, so we eventually got our table in a nice cozy area at this really cool rooftop bar with a great view of Nairobi. And yeah, we just, obviously the drinks came in, the drinks were flowing, we start getting more saucy. And to be fair, for most of the night, I actually didn't really talk to this girl that I eventually brought back to mind. We just, every now and then in passing, would chat for a bit, but she was dancing in the corner with some of the other girls, and then I was talking to some of the boys in the other corner, in our little like section or whatever. So I think this is another thing that I've also noticed is, sometimes if you're at a party and you like a girl, I think there's that temptation, or you think you have to always be around her or always be talking to her 24/7, and you sort of latch onto her throughout the night. And yeah, I think I've learned just through experience, which is funny. This ties into what I'll talk about in the second half of the stream, but I think by getting more dating experience, being on lots of dates, and also more specifically meeting, women in like parties, I've realized that you don't need to like latch onto the girl, right? You just need to naturally talk to different people. If you're with your friends, talk to your friends, bring her into the conversation, or if she's with her friends, go and talk to them and as a group. And yeah, like it's more so about the sub communication. I don't think you need to constantly be yapping to the girl throughout the entire evening. And I mean, not to say that that's necessarily a bad thing. I just think I think it just depends on how you go about it. Because I think a lot of the time, if you're somebody who doesn't have much experience like I used to be, then you feel the pressure to constantly be around the girl. Otherwise, you're afraid of that she won't be thinking about you, or she won't be interested, or she'll lose interest as the night progresses because you're not spending time together. But I think in reality, even looking back at last night, the way that sort of went about things was, let's say, more effective, because the way that I looked at it was, okay, I'm just gonna make it fairly clear at the beginning stages of, let's say, our first interactions in the night, which was even before we went to the bar, that I'm gonna make it clear that I'm basically flirting with her, right? It's all about the flirting, it's the sub communication, and so I don't have to like constantly talk. I can just make that intention clear, and then she gets the signal. And then eventually, as the night progresses, maybe we start talking a bit more, which is what happened, to be fair. So as we crossed over to New Year's, obviously the clock struck midnight, and everyone's cheering or hugging each other, having a good time. Um, and then after that, because of course at this point we're all a little bit more drunk. And so yeah, we're all dancing. The DJ's playing absolute bangers, and then yeah, as we get into the early hours of the morning, that's when I'm maybe laying it on a bit, let's say, thicker or more intensely on the girl that I was interested in, just because now at this point everybody had kind of gone into their own little groups. So it was a fairly big group. So you know we have, though, to be fair, there was one couple in that group, so that couple was all getting lovey-dovey because of the New Year's fever or whatever. So they were like in their corner, and then a couple of the other girls were doing their thing, and so I just took it as an opportunity to just, talk to that girl that I was interested in. We'll call her Jenny. We'll call her Jenny for now. So yeah, me and Jenny are now talking, in like the same section, but just in the corner in our own little private space, and that was nice because then we were actually able to talk a bit, flirt a bit more, get to know each other. Um, and then yeah, I think at one point when we were talking, I just flat out just told her I want to take her back to mine. I think I said it in a much more, let's say, explicit way. I was feeling quite courageous. Who knows? Maybe that was partly because of the alcohol, the liquid courage. But I mean, obviously, as someone who does cold approach, and I'm at a point now where being direct is almost my default way of communicating interest in any context when it comes to women. So leaning into that didn't feel that difficult, to be honest. Of course, there's different levels to it, right? But I could, like, if I think back to what I was telling her, I was definitely like being super direct, but of course in a non-needy way. Um, and so that was funny because once the night sort of ended and came to a close, we all went down from the rooftop bar to the waiting lobby in the building, and we were all trying to sort out Ubers, and then we were all still taking pictures, like laughing, getting up to our shenanigans because at this point we're still pretty drunk. Um, and then at some point, yeah, I'm not exactly sure how. I mean, obviously, like I said, I made my intention clear throughout, and in the club before we left, I told her I want to take her back to mine. But then there was a little bit of resistance, I think. Let's say when we were waiting in the lobby for the Ubers, because I think her friend wanted her to go with her, so her friend wanted Jenny to go back with her, But then Jenny was like, well, to be fair, I think yeah, Jenny wanted to. She wasn't quite sure if she wanted to go back for like another night out. Oh, sorry, another club, because there was, people wanted to hop to another venue, and to be fair, I was pretty tired, so I didn't want to go to another club. And so there was a little bit of resistance there. So not in the sense that she didn't want to come back to mine. It was just she was either she had two options basically. She could either come back to mine directly, or she could go with some of her other friends, and they could go to another club and continue the night away. But me, I'm a bit of I'm an old man now. Like I can only do so much clubbing in one night. So I was like, look, I'm going back to mine. You don't have to come, but if you want to come through, then let's just get an Uber. But I'm more than happy for you to just go with your friends and go out. And so that was what I said to her, and of course, again, that's the non-neediness, right? Because the reality is that I didn't need her to come back to mine. Of course, I wanted it to happen, and I would have been a little bit deflated or disappointed that I didn't get to experience that with her. But yeah, I mean, I just put it out on the table and said, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. And I mean, literally, that's even the way I was saying it was just kind of like I was completely detached. I don't really care too much. And yeah, I think she probably got that sense that okay, this guy's not trying to push me to come back, because you know how guys can be when they're desperate. You can be very pushy and try to really get the girl to come back, and maybe even try and make her feel bad if she doesn't want to come back or that sort of thing. And yeah, it's not a great way to go about it. You don't want to pressure anybody into doing anything. You want it to be her choice, and you want her to be fully invested in whatever she's doing. Right? We're not here to like convince anybody to like us. Which again is a great lesson that you get from Cold Approach. Yeah, because when you're having so many conversations with people, with women in the streets or in any other contexts, you you naturally you naturally realize that you know some women will be really into you from the get go. Like that's on one end of the spectrum, and then you've got women below that who they're into you, but they're not quite sure. Maybe they have a few reservations. Of course, we don't necessarily know what those reservations might be, but maybe again they just need a bit more time to warming up. But then of course on the other end you just have girls who just aren't interested, right? Or maybe they were interested to a degree, but when it comes to sleeping with you or hooking up with you or being in a relationship with you in a romantic context, then that just doesn't exist. And so you're always trying to gauge that interest, right, when you're having the conversations. And you're just naturally, subconsciously, once you've done this enough times, and I feel like I'm able to really gauge if the girl's interested, which then of course that informs if I'm going to like go for it in the end. I think it's still good to always shoot your shot anyway, even if you're not sure, because some girls, they don't give much off. Like they're a bit more not introspective. They're a bit more reserved or introverted. So sometimes they really want something, but they don't know how to express it, or they struggle to articulate it, or they're just a little bit shy, right? So I think that can be. I think in that case, then it is still good to shoot your shot, because you might be surprised by the girl's reaction. In fact, to be fair, I would say that the girl that I'm seeing in London, um, she's she's someone who doesn't give off too much, or doesn't give away too much in terms of her like like when she's like her energy or just the way she talks. Like she's very like demure and chill. But of course, like there's moments where she can be very expressive and fun and eccentric and very just like out there. But like when you meet her for the first time, right? Like when I met her for the first time, when I approached her, she was like very chill, very calm. But when we spoke later about like my first approach or our first date together, even though in my head I thought that the dates went well, but she wasn't giving me too much. When I asked her, weeks later, she would tell me things like, "Oh yeah, like I really loved the way that you handled that date. Like I love the fact that we went to this museum and then we bought these strawberries at the market and then we did this and did that and sat at the bench and hugged and kissed a bit and this and that." So like she, even though like to the untrained eye, let's say, it's hard to spot the interest, but the reality is that she was actually really into me, right? I just couldn't see it like clearly. So yeah, without going on a tangent, I think it's important to, I think like this being on more dates and having more experience allows you to gauge that interest. And so instead of trying to push every single lead, or like try and close every single deal, you realize, oh, this girl's not that interested, so I'm not gonna push it, right? I'm not trying to convince her to come back with me, right? So that's what I did, and then yeah, I essentially just put the ball in Jenny's court and said, look, Jenny, if you want to come through, come through. You know where I'm at. If you don't, cool. And then yeah, she decided to come through, so we came back to mine, had a great night, and then yeah, woke up this morning. Yeah, spoke for a bit more. Went back to the apartment where we had pre-drinks with my friends because I left my laptop bag there, which is where obviously I needed that back. So yeah, I went back to collect that, and then we parted ways. So yeah, that was like my mini New Year's Eve romance story. I only bring it up because I think it's again it's just another experience, right? And I had fun, I enjoyed it, and I always try to come away from these experiences with like a lesson in hand because I think each of these experiences, these romantic experiences, they can be valuable, and I don't want to read too much into every single one, but I am in that phase of life where I have romantic abundance now more than ever before. So I think I'm like in real time I'm shifting, right? The way that I carry myself, the way that I think about dating, and just even yeah, just everything around my like dating life is just changing every single time. So yeah, I think it's important to like put like a mark or mark this as like a chapter um, in my journey, right? Because I still think I'm early. I keep saying this on lots of videos and streams, but I don't see myself as an expert in any way. Like I'm still a beginner in this sense when it comes to like my experience with dating, cold approach, etc. So I'm always trying to learn. I see myself as like a student of the game, right? So yeah, but it was fun, great night. She was really cool as well. But it's interesting because on the one hand, I think we got along and we had like good banter, which is something that I'm realizing now that I need to have a nice sort of like like similar sense of humor with any girl that I'm seeing at a romantic level. Otherwise, it can be quite tough for me to connect. But that being said, yeah, we had a good vibe going on, but I could tell that and to be fair, she admitted this herself, right? So she would say things like, yeah, I can be a bit clingy sometimes, or I like to sometimes talk a lot when I'm with like a guy or whatever. And I was telling her like I'm the opposite. I kind of need some space and independence um, if I'm like seeing someone, and that's why I like having a bit more distance um, when I feel like I'm sort of either just I've been around too many people, not even just with dating, but in like with socializing in general, right? Because I've said it before. I class myself as a natural introvert, which again, I don't use that as an excuse to not go out and socialize. But the point is, like, my preference is to have my own time, or at least I need my own time before I can get out and, like see people. And the same applies to dating, right? Like, if I'm with a girl, I don't want to spend too much time with her. Um, and so, yeah. And then even, when it comes to the kind of girl in terms of their personality and, their like their vibe. I like the chill, demure girls. Yeah, I don't get me wrong. I don't mind the girl who is expressive and like just as maybe more extroverted than I am. I think that can be fun too. But I think if I had to say, what kind of like temperament would I like if I was to get into a long term relationship, for example, with somebody who I'd be seeing fairly often, I think just based on my experiences so far, I'd prefer somebody who's more on the chill side rather than the eccentric side. Um, but again, like I've only learned that through experiences, right? So this goes into the next part of my stream, which is why I want to talk about why I think dating experience is so important because, you know, even in the last 6 months, like obviously we're at the turn of a year, it's 2026 now, so a lot of us are looking forward into what the new year might bring, but we're also reflecting on what's happened in 2025 and all the wins, all the losses, all the lessons. And one second, let me drink this. And so, you know, looking back, the last 6 months have been a lot of growth, right? If you think about like an exponential growth curve, I feel like the last 6 months is that part of the exponential growth curve that just goes way up, right, with that higher rate of acceleration. And so I use that analogy because I feel like I've learned all of those lessons in that high growth, high velocity part of the curve, which is the last 6 months. And one of those lessons is just, well, let's say that the broader, like, or the, would it be the broader lesson? Yeah, the broader lesson that I've gotten from the experiences I've had in the last 6 months is I'm starting to find out what I like and what I don't like, or what I'm comfortable with or what I'm not comfortable with, or what I tolerate and what I don't tolerate when it comes to like dating, relationships, etc. And I still have a lot to learn, and you know, in a similar sense, I still feel as if I need to, like, getting more experience will allow me to understand how I show up in relationships, and how I date, and what my weaknesses are, what my strengths are, or any habits that I might like spot whenever I'm in these sort of relationships. And it's great because also I've had different types of experiences, right? Like I've had, last night was obviously a hookup, but then I've had like more, let's say, semi-serious relationships. Let's say I've had like medium-term relationships, I've had short-term flings, um, and of course I've met people in different countries, different cultures, so far, and also from different places. So with all of that, with all of those experiences, I think what I've taken away is that I'm I have a certain, let's say, predisposition, and I gravitate towards certain like types of personality or girls. And so that's important because it means that going forward, I can kind of filter out, what I want out of a relationship. So, and I think that's so important because I think if you don't have the romantic abundance or the dating abundance, then you don't get that opportunity to test things out, right? Think of it like a buffet, right? Like you're at a buffet and you're not quite sure what you like, but imagine somebody told you to just pick, you could only pick one food at the buffet, right? And you had to pick one and then forego the rest, right? I think that's kind of like playing roulette, right? Because sure, of the 10 dishes on display, you might pick the one dish that you actually really love and fancy and it tastes great. And that's going to be your go-to meal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? But I mean, the chances are fairly low, right? Because there's 9 other dishes that, sure, some of those dishes could be worse than the one that you picked, or it could be better than the one that you picked, right? But you would never know if you didn't try it, right? And of course, you might taste a dish that is absolutely like terrible, tastes horrible, and you'll never touch it again. Maybe it even gave you food poisoning, and you're like, I'm never going back to that. And you could look at that and go, oh, I would have been better off just not tasting it. But again, like I said, you don't know, right? So you have to run that risk sometimes of picking the dish that doesn't taste great and leaves you with a sour taste in your mouth. But at the end of the day, you know not to go back to it. Yeah. But of course, on the flip side, there's the other positive possibility, which is you find a dish that you absolutely love, but you would have never known if you didn't try it, right? So that's why the buffet analogy actually works really well because you want to be able to try different types of food from different places and then like decide or settle on what you like the best, right? And it doesn't mean that the meal is perfect. It just means that it's to your liking, it's to your taste buds. And so I think the same applies to dating, right? You want to get as many experiences as you want, and that doesn't mean that I'm saying that everyone needs to like engage in some like get hookups or have a body count of 50. I remember, who was it? I think it was like Myron on Fresh and Fit. He once said that every guy needs to have at least 50 bodies before he gets into like a long-term relationship or marriage. I mean, no, that's just not true, right? I'm not advocating for that. Of course, do whatever you want. Who cares? I don't actually care. But when I say experiences, I don't necessarily mean like hookups. I just mean like it's important to have some experience dating different types of women because you learn a lot about yourself in that process, and you'll eventually like have a sort of, let's say, criteria, but also like let's say well-rounded idea of what you like. And you only get there through, I think you only get there through experiences, right? Because on the opposite end, if you're scarce and you don't have any options, then it's hard to know what you want. And the danger, right? The danger of not having dating experience is that you'll always be operating from this place of scarcity. And we never ever make good decisions in a place of scarcity, because it's we're desperate, right? So a lot of the time we either throw away our principles because we're desperate, and all we're trying to get is, I mean, to just keep it frank, in the context of dating, guys are so desperate for pussy that they will just like put away their principles, ignore red flags, and just do whatever it takes to get laid, right? And you see this all the time in how guys behave, and we've all been there. I've been there too, right? So it's just this the scarcity. This my God, it's the alcohol. The scarcity is a problem in that sense because it just clouds your judgment, yeah, and you you can't really see properly. It's almost as if you've got these like tinted glasses that are really messing up your vision. And of course, if you can't see, then you're more likely to stumble and fall over, or make the same mistakes. And so that's why I think dating experience with different kinds of girls, different contexts is so valuable. It's not just that it's fun, right? Because it is fun to meet different people. I actually love like meeting these girls and like going on dates, and they're all different, and it's just kind of like meeting new friends as well, right? Like everyone has their own life, they've all had their own journey, they all have their own interests, and you get to meet this new person for the first time and get to know each other, and there's a really cool fun vibe to that. I really enjoy it. And so I'm not that's why that's why I'm not saying that necessarily just hooking up is the answer, because that can be a little bit shallow. But again, like I think there's a place for that as well, especially if you've been in scarcity for so long. I think you're more than welcome to just play the field, have fun, and not have to take it too seriously. I think every guy is well within his right to do that if he wants to do that for a phase of life. It's totally up to you, right? So, but the point is, I enjoy the process of getting to know these girls. So it's yeah, it's just like a really fun experience. And so but yeah, the scarcity position is tough because you don't get to experience that. And what ends up happening is whenever you do get opportunities, it kind of feels like a do or die moment, right? It's like, oh, this is the one opportunity in like the last 2 months that that I've had, and I can't fuck this up. I need this to go perfectly. And now you're in your head, you're overthinking. It feels like everything is on the line, and if you mess up, then you won't get anything like it ever again. And so that just seeps into your language, your body language, the way you speak, your desperation, and 9 times out of 10, it sabotages you, right? And so, and it's a shame because guys will also carry this into relationships, right? So if you've been looking for a relationship and then but you haven't had any experience, when you finally get that one relationship, it will feel high pressure, and you'll probably, maybe even subconsciously, without you knowing, you'll be bending over backwards to keep to keep the relationship going, right? Because you're operating from a place of I need her, otherwise I'm fucked. So if you're operating from that paradigm, then of course you're gonna you're going to like go, you're gonna basically let go of your principles, and you're gonna do whatever it takes to maintain the relationship, even if it comes at the expense of being authentic, right? Or even if it means that she now has more power than you or she has an unhealthy amount of power over you in the relationship, and then all of a sudden it's like a big problem now because she's like she can take advantage of you, and you don't want to be in that position, right? You want to be the guy who knows he can, you know, on any given day walk outside, meet new women, date them, and have flourishing relationships, right? Because we often talk about, like, with cold approach, it's essentially like a lead generation mechanism if you're going to get nerdy about it, but it's just a way to get leads, right? The intention or the goal is to get dates. But we also forget that a big part of why cold approach is great is because it just opens up your pool to the outside world. And instead of having to rely on dating apps and the algorithms, or your social circle, or your other means, other limited small like sample size, let's say social settings, instead of relying on that, you get to go out into the wide beautiful, expansive world, right? Where there's all sorts of people, and you're more likely to find somebody who aligns with your beliefs or aligns with your interests, or again, like I talked about earlier, is somebody whose personality is, let's say, it interweaves nicely with your own idiosyncrasies or your own personality traits, etc. And so I just think it's I think I lost my train of thought. Yeah, no. So I was just basically saying how, you know, you like the part of cold approach, aside from just getting the dates, is that we're getting dates with women that we actually like, right? We're getting dates with women that we actually vibe with, rather than just settling for someone because that's the only option we have. And that's like think about that, right? Like think about the difference between a relationship where somebody just settled for someone because that was all they could get, versus a relationship where you met multiple different people and you chose her. Like you chose her to be the girl that you want to shack up with, right? You chose from a position of abundance. Like that completely changes everything, because it means that one, you're not desperate. Two, if the relationship ends, basically you're not afraid of the relationship ending and being left out on the street with your dick in your hand and no other options, because you know that she's replaceable. And then yeah, three, it's just you're way more chilled. You're way more um I mean, naturally you'll just be more authentic, right? You can be yourself in the relationship. You're not too afraid to make mistakes or to fuck up. And you can just be way more open and honest, which is what a good relationship needs, right? Regardless of whether it's like a short-term romance or medium-term romance or your future girlfriend, future wife, you need to be operating from that place of abundance, which is so important, so important. Um, and yeah, I think Chris Williamson, if you guys know him, he's a podcaster, and he has this idea called unteachable lessons. And so these are lessons that, guys online, which includes me, I can talk about these experiences on stream, on video. You can even read about it in a book. I'm sure there's people out there who have written about this sort of stuff at length in much more detail than I'm talking about. But I think with stuff like this, the best way you'll learn it and understand it is by going through it, right? And these are lessons that I've just gone through, by putting in reps and then eventually getting dates and then eventually having happy endings and, let's say, converting those dates into actual romantic like experiences. And yeah, the more of these I've had, the better I get at managing like relationships, understanding the feminine, and yeah, most importantly, just understanding myself and what my habits are. Because one thing that we tend not to, let's say, admit as guys, is that there is a tendency for us to change our behavior when we're around women, right? And so I think, guys do this all the time, but I think the guys who don't do this are the guys who get lots of girls because they don't have anything to prove. And I think when you feel like you have something to prove, that's when you start chopping and changing your personality. And I used to be that kind of person when it came to girls. So now I'm realizing that, okay, I can just be myself and I can just present my raw, authentic self to all these girls. And if they like me, great. And if they don't, it's cool. So again, that's like an unteachable lesson, right? Because when you're in that scarce position, like I was, even those people would tell me, be this, be that, be authentic, or don't be desperate. Like a lot of this desperation comes from the subconscious, and it's really hard to change that overnight just by reading a book or watching a video. But the reason why content is great is because now you have an idea of where you'll eventually get to if you keep on taking action. And so your action, the guys I'm talking to right now, the guys who are approaching, because I know there's guys out there who are approaching or at least are thinking about approaching. Like I want to, I'm making this kind of video because I think it reassures you that your action isn't in vain, right? Like your action will pay off eventually. And even if you feel like you're not really being as authentic as you want to be, or you feel like the anxiety and that desperation and scarcity is seeping into every area of your approaches, or let's say some of you guys are even going on dates, and you feel as if you're not really showing up authentically, or you're putting on a mask. Like, I've been there, done that, and I've really had to do lots of, let's say, work, introspection to identify it and try to fix it. But I think the biggest way to fix it, apart from, taking a step back and reflecting, is to just keep on going. Is to just keep on going, right? I think more action, more experiences, yeah, you'll just naturally learn the lesson eventually. So, yeah, that's that's all I really wanted to talk. That's all I really wanted to talk about, to be honest. Obviously, like I said, I'm a little bit tired. Yeah, obviously a little bit hungover as well. But yeah, my time to Kenya is coming to a close, so I'm leaving on Saturday morning, back to the UK. And yeah, it's a new year. I'm excited for this year. I think I might do a video specifically about 2026 and what the goals are, and what I think is going to be a really important area for me to like hone in on when it comes to my dating life. But I think for me right now, I'm in a phase of big transition, and that involves my location, my new career path, which are obviously like massive pillars of my life. So a lot of energy and time will be going into that. But of course, I'll still be talking about dating, cold approach, still approaching here and there. Um, but like I've said before, I'm pretty happy with the options I have. I have the girl I'm seeing in London, and we have a nice sort of let's say non-exclusive relationship. So there's no pressure there to tie anything down super early. Um, and yeah, like life is good. The truth is, life is good. I had a really strong end to the year, and so much happened last year, so much growth, so many wins, a lot of difficult moments too that I had to really get over. But I think a combination of just having resilience, gritting my teeth and just persevering, and then also finding help through community, other guys in the space like Ephraim. And so yeah, that obviously helped me a lot. But yeah, I've ended the year on a strong note, and I want to carry that momentum into the new year. And I hope you boys can do the same. The new year always presents a new opportunity to start from a clean slate, and to really push forward with new goals, recreate a new identity. Because I'm a different person now. You know, um, I'm a very different person to the person I used to be a year ago. So a lot can happen in one year, right? And it's crazy because whenever I have these experiences with dating, I always wake up the next morning when the girl's gone, and I'm like, wow, like this is actually kind of cool. Like I'm actually enjoying myself. This is fun, you know? And I don't have to stress about dating anymore. And it's funny because I've been meeting friends that I used to go to school with, and we've been having nice catch ups. And I think sometimes I've noticed, like a running theme in our conversations has been around dating and how like difficult it is for guys to date. So, just for some comfort, we're not the only ones struggling to date. Guys who watch cold approach content, like we're not the minority. Most guys are struggling. Even most girls don't like the options they have. I know people say that girls have it easy because they get a flurry of options on dating apps, but they just have a different kind of problem um, than we do. But the point is, people are struggling, yeah. So you're not alone. Don't feel as if you're the odd one out. Like a lot of people are struggling, but it is good. It's nice to be in my position where I've taken action, but like I've taken extreme action, right? I haven't gone down the dating app optimization route. I haven't tried to strategically get girls through social circles. I haven't you know, gone to the gym and tried to like body max myself or looks max myself to death and break my jaw. I've gone through the code approach route, which is the most effective route, and like I'm not even gonna bother arguing with anybody. Like that is the most effective route for the right person, with the right mindset. So it's nice to be in that position where I honestly can't relate to those dating issue problems anymore, the ones that my friends talk about or the other girls in my friendship group talk about, because I've curated a lifestyle where I have way more control over my dating options. So I don't succumb to the algorithms. You know, I have more options and I have more experience. So yeah, I'm not suffering in the same place that I guess they are. Um, but again, like I said, it's the result of putting in the work. Um, so yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, hopefully that was useful. But like I said before, Happy New Year, guys. I hope you have a smashing year. And yeah, until then, keep on approaching. Don't let any fear or anxiety stop you from chasing after what you want. Because yeah, you only live once, man. So yeah, from me to you, good luck. But yeah, until the next one, boys. Peace out.